Hey, this is John Fernay, the co-host of the Maryland Crabs, and I am here today with a Maryland Crabcake for your listening pleasure. What's a crab cake? It's not quite a full episode, it's just a little snippet. Stay tuned and check it out. And make sure you check us out on themarylandcrabs.com. You can follow us on Twitter at MD Crabs Podcast or find us on Facebook at the Maryland Crabs Podcast. And don't forget, subscribe, rate us, iTunes. Go there now. Hey, we're back here to offer congratulations to the Scenic Rivers Land Trust, and I'm very proud that I got that name right and didn't call it the Scenic Rivers Land Trust. But you guys just crossed 3,000 acres now under conservation.
Woo!
And the last time we talked, that was you were close, and that was where you needed to be, and by golly, you've got it. Joining us today, we have Sarah Nebel, who is the Conservation Director.
Yep.
Did I get that correct?
You did.
Okay. And we have Nina Fisher, who is the chairman or the president of the board of trustees or perhaps directors. And I always get confused as to which is.
Right? Yes.
Which?
How long have you been here?
There is some sort of a legal definition between a board of directors and a board of trustees or something.
I don't pay too much attention to titles.
But yes, you just have acquired another easement, and that pushed you over 100 and it was 100 and some odd acres, wasn't it?
So we had one in February that was 111, and then we had two close in May that were 93 and 81 acres. So
last two were 174.
Yeah. So it's just about
285.
See, now we're all bringing out our fingers and our calculators trying to figure out the math.
I think 285 acres so far.
Over 3,000 acres in Anne Arundel County is just absolutely phenomenal. How many acres does the county have? Do you have any idea? Total?
This represents over 1% of the county land.
Okay.
I think there's about 265,000 acres of land in Anne Arundel County.
Right.
Yeah.
1%. Is that typically is that number a good number as far as land trusts go?
I think it varies so much depending on where you are. In, say, Vermont, which is very rural, this might not be a very good number, and their easements are so big that it could be one easement is 400 acres.
Gotcha.
In a highly developed area like Anne Arundel County, I'd say this is a pretty reasonable amount of land.
To me, it sounds like an awful lot of land and a very, very good number. That 1% seems like a great number to have.
Thank you.
And so, I mean, how did we land these easements? I mean, is it just going out and
a lot of work?
And I know nothing comes quickly in this. This is
no, it does not. But good things take time. So usually we start, with some outreach, some postcards to, landowners that, have a certain size of land. And then I usually hold a workshop, and we're actually holding 2 workshops this summer.
Okay.
So it's a Conservation Easement 101 for landowner workshop, and it's about an hour long. And so I basically just drill it down into the details of what easements encompass, like what are the usual, things in an easement.
The pitfalls that you need to watch out for.
Right. Yeah, and we'll allow this, but we won't allow this, and that kind of stuff, and what it all looks like, and what funding we have for it. And usually we get a decent amount of interest from just spreading the word about the workshops. And even if landowners can't come, they will just call me instead, and we'll have a conversation on the phone, or, I'll go out to their property and we'll look at it together and kind of sit down on their back porch and talk about it. And that's usually the best way to do it, because I can, craft the conversation just to how this very customizable thing can fit for their land.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's obviously it's a personal decision. I mean, there's I've got to imagine there's many emotions involved in doing that. I mean, you've got a piece of land, and obviously it's a sizable piece of land, or you guys wouldn't be interested in it. So you're not knocking on my half-acre door looking for...
Sorry.
That's okay. You can come over and have a beer. I've got beer in the refrigerator. So, but it's like selling a house. I mean, it's like it's your baby for most people. And
for some families, it goes back generations. So
Well, I know
there's
County
a
Executive
tie.
Pittman's farm goes back.
I think 8 generations. for him.
And it's crazy. And he's, and that I believe is in an easement. I don't know whether you guys have the easement, but I mean, I think there's a
He's
trust.
probably in an ag easement.
I think that he said that when I was talking to him, he said his family has this all in some sort of a land trust, and that the kids, his 5 or 6 brothers and sisters, all live on the property, and you can't do anything until you get the agreement of the other ones, which is, he says, we're going on 50 years, and that's never going to happen. So, but again, it's a very personal thing, I've got to think. And it's not something that, oh yeah, hey, I think I want to do that. Where do I sign? And it's so different for everybody. Is this the end of a family? Is somebody getting old and there is nobody to take over? Is there no interest in taking it over? Mm-hmm. Are all my kids, city dwellers? Right. Do they really care? Do we want the money? So there's all sorts of things that go into that, but there's an awful lot of benefits that benefit the landowner as well as certainly the county and the Scenic Rivers Land Trust.
And all the residents of Anne Arundel County, because the more conserved forests we have, the better the air quality in the area.
Right, and water quality. So, trees filter our water, so we're named that was our old name, Severn River Land Trust, but we're Scenic Rivers Land Trust. And so we're trying, everything that happens on the land is going to affect the water. So all this effort of stream restoration and trying to get the bay cleaner, like you need to remember to keep your forests intact too in special spots. So we're trying to, it's not only for cleaner air, cleaner water, better quality of life for everybody is how conservation easements work, even if you can't physically go on the property yourself.
Well, it really is. And I've noticed recently there was a story in the paper where Broadneck High School, they had extra money from their prom and homecomings and all that they've raised over 4 years for different events. And they said, okay, well, our class account has $6,000 extra. And they vote among the class, and they can vote to wherever they want to donate money. They decided to do it to, sorry, not you guys, but it was the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I thought it was just very telling and very moving that here are these 17 and 18-year-old kids, and this is what moved them. We could have, donated to any number of things. Let's do, cybersecurity. Let's do to new basketball courts or whatnot. But it was the Conservancy that moved them. And I thought that was very telling. And I think that everybody that lives in the county, whether they live near the water, certainly we're all in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, 100%. I was in an argument with, not an argument, but a discussion with somebody about where the Chesapeake Bay watershed actually starts. And I think it's Cooperstown, New York.
Yeah, way up there.
And
it's pretty far away. It's 64,000 square miles, the Chesapeake Bay watershed.
It's great. And I was lamenting coming in Southern Virginia one time and seeing signs like, hey, you're entering the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and getting excited and say, yes, I'm almost home. And then realizing there's another 5 hours to drive. It's sort of like when you get into Florida and you think, you're almost there and you're going to Miami. And it's like, no, it's a really long state. But our lives do revolve, even if we don't live on the water, if we don't live near a forested area, on a preserved area, our lives do revolve around the open spaces, around the forested spaces that to do it. And as Sarah, you pointed out, the filtering that the earth does, that a forested, that a populated piece of land, and by populated I mean not by humans and asphalt, does for the environment. And we all appreciate the quality of life, and that's sort of a really vague concept. What is quality of life? I've got a good job, I pay the bills, and I drive a nice car, and traffic is not too bad. Maybe that's it. But in the end, we've got to look at your health. You look at clean air, you look at clean water, and all of your work ties right into that directly. It's like a direct stream to bring the analogy in there.
And more, there's a connection. Research is showing a connection between mental health and nature. So having areas where you can have that touchstone of, there are some publicly accessible easements, like Bacon Ridge being the most well-known one of ours, and people who go in there. I know my attitude changes almost immediately upon entering the trail.
I don't know that you needed a study for that. I know whenever I get all ticked off or stressed out or something like that, rather than kicking the dog or the cat, it's like, okay, I need to go out and walk around the block.
Yeah.
And, my parents told me, go get some fresh air was the word. And that's, and that it really does. I mean, I'm a big advocate of doing that. You mentioned Bacon Ridge, and I do want to say that I was at the Walk for the Woods, which was just absolutely fantastic. I know you sort of slid it in there among some rainy weekends, which we seem to have had for the last decade.
Yeah.
A little muddy getting back there, but it was just an absolutely fabulous walk. We did like I said, the Northern Trail, or the one that's not generally open to the public.
Right. Awesome.
And it was fantastic. And I would like to get back there to that pond that blooms, but it wasn't blooming when
all the water lilies.
Yeah, that's gorgeous.
Well, that's what they said, and I said, okay, I got to get a drone and fly it over there or something like that to see, because it's not open to the public. But again, the Walk for the Woods was just wonderful. We got the T-shirts. We haven't got the T-shirts to prove it, but it was a great fundraiser. I hope you guys did really well with it. I mean, I know the county executive was there. I saw a number of other people there and other friends, and our guide was wonderful.
Oh, who was your guide this year?
You're going to ask me that. I knew you were going to put me on the spot. I forget. He was a gentleman probably in his early 60s. Not heavy, but certainly not skinny, but not heavy. He had an orange shirt on, which had the vents on the back, which are all the rage for the.
So what time was your walk? Do you remember?
10, maybe 9:30, 10.
Wasn't Mitch?
Oh, might have been Mitch.
But he's not heavy at all, really.
Yeah,
no, just fantastic. I mean, he talked about picking up the rocks and being able to, you could tell the different things as to what was there, and the old farm, and it was talking about the old farmhouse that's there, and you can see the foundation on it, and so on and so forth. And we talked a little bit about geocaching, and but it was great to see a part of Anne Arundel County that is not usually seen by people. You really almost forgot that you were 20 minutes from Washington, D.C. or 20 minutes from Baltimore, except occasionally you might hear a truck go by on 97 off in the distance.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how many people we can get out there in one day. It was 350, I think, was...
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there was the total for this year.
You know what you should do? You should start charging for it and then put free beer at the end.
Ooh.
And that'll get them out
liquor
there.
License
At the end. The key is at the end, not at the beginning, okay? You don't want drunk people.
New type of geocaching.
Yeah.
Beer caching.
But you had mentioned you're having seminars or meetings to discuss land conservancy. And they're coming up in July and
August.
July 18th, 2 to 3 p.m. at the Edgewater Library, and August 13th from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Crofton Library.
Okay.
Because the Annapolis Library is not going to be built by then.
Right.
But
be an open air sort of thing there.
So what do we expect at the discussions?
So basically, I'll walk landowners through what they can expect from the process. And so, landowners come for different reasons. Either, they might want to protect their land for their kids or from their kids, or they think, they want to make sure that their family legacy is perpetuated for a long time because it's been in their family for generations, or, they would really like to take advantage of the tax incentives that are available, or perhaps the any funding that we have that we can donate, a landowner can donate property, or not a property, an easement, so they can donate it and then they can get some pretty hefty financial or tax incentives.
Sure.
So, the value of an easement is intrinsically it's a lot of things, but financially it's how many development rights you're giving up. So if zoning says that you can build 3 houses and you give us the right to build 2 and we just extinguish it in the easement, that's $200,000 that they're giving up.
Right.
Which is a big deal to give up.
Sure.
So they have to think about it. But, in that they can basically use that as a charitable tax donation. Charitable donation for their income taxes, so they can deduct that from their taxes, which a lot of people find to be great.
And that's over a period of years. They don't have to take it all in 1 year.
Right, so they can carry it forward for up to 15 years
Okay.
if they can't use it up all in 1 year, which is usually the case. Most people can't use a $300,000 tax deduction in one go. And then you can also have a bargain purchase where if you have an appraisal that says it's worth $300,000, and the landowner says, okay, well, I'll sell it to you for $150,000, and I can use a tax deduction for $150,000, and you pay me $150,000.
Right.
And then there's the other end of end of that line is we just do a full purchase if they can't afford to, donate part of their that value.
Now, in every case, though, it sounds like in purchase that we end up with the land. We don't end up with the land. The landowner still holds onto the land and does not have to allow the public onto the land. They just have to abide by the restrictions that they've agreed upon in the easement.
In the easement. Now, do you own any land? Are you, as the Scenic Rivers Land Trust, a landowner?
We own a bog, a 5-acre bog on the Magathie River.
Which is really cool.
It's a very cool place. It has a couple endangered plants on it. And the Magathie Land Trust has a conservation easement on it.
Okay.
So we've owned it for about 10 years now, I think.
Well, generally we try not to purchase lands because any monies that we have to use towards easements can go a lot further than outright purchases of land can.
Sure. Well, do most of the easements that you get come from land that has been under the same ownership for a long time or generations?
No, it changes actually. So, it's 50-50, I would say. So the 111-acre easement that we closed on in February, she'd had that farmland in her family for 150 years. But 2 other easements that we've done recently, they had just purchased the property maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
So one was given the property.
Yeah, actually, one was a very interesting story.
Well, I mean, because where I was sort of thinking about this is that, you've got somebody that, if I've got a piece of property that I, as a, say I got it when I was 25 and now I'm 75. Mm-hmm. I've had a piece of property for 50 years. And I bought it for $30,000 and I put a house on it and everything else. I've got that capital gains on the property that's going there. Mm-hmm. And the value to me is $30,000. I mean, that's pretty much, from a mindset, that's what I call it. It's worth a lot more now. Now because of inflation and everything else. And that's, it seems that's almost could be a no-brainer to, in a lot of circumstances. If you've inherited land, so there is no real cost basis of it, where there is a low cost basis of the acquisition versus what it is worth now, weighing the tax incentive, and then you're doing a great thing to preserve the land.
Yeah, exactly. We've had some people that the tax incentive was nice, but that wasn't really the reason why they were protecting their property. They wanted to make sure the land that they loved stayed the way that they've seen it for the last 50 years, and that's often a big motive on why people come and talk to us.
I'm surprised more people aren't into it. Maybe it's because more people don't know about it. That's why hence the
partly that, and also it's more complicated than a simple transaction.
Right.
It has to be crafted to be right for that person and that landowner, and it takes time and some learning and some a lot of discussion.
Well, it also needs to be right for you guys as well.
Oh, certainly.
You're not going to be, maybe you would, but, I'll say like that little Dobbins Island. I know that's been in the news lately about the building the house on there. I mean, that is probably not a piece of land that you would be interested in the middle of the Magathie River. That's, it may be. I mean, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but there may be certain parcels of land that don't make sense for you. Maybe it's just too non-contiguous, or maybe, the interest lies in, I know, Bacon Ridge, I know you're would love to expand that all the way down and connect that into, through the General's Highway corridor down into the, I guess it's the Defense Highway, the Waterworks Park for the city of Annapolis. It's a pipe dream for a while. It takes a lot of moving parts to do it, but it's possible.
Yeah, that's a big dream that we've had for a long time, to be able to connect all those, all those big
green spaces.
But you're definitely right. We have, areas where, like the South River Greenway at the headwaters of the South River, it encompasses Bacon Ridge Natural Area, and we've been trying to build up all the conservation easements in that because it's such an important area. One, it's gorgeous and rural anyway, but it's a really important area for birds, so we try and, instead of just getting one easement, if you put a bunch together, they each protect each other as well.
Right.
But if you go somewhere else, if you just have 5 acres that's in the middle of a suburban neighborhood, that's a great area for public access. But depending on what's around it, there might not be a whole lot of wildlife, value to it.
No, without a doubt. I mean, I live in a fairly urban area, if you will. I'm down in the city of Annapolis, so we do have some trees. I'm not in the middle of a forest, and every now and then there's a turtle or a rabbit or something like that. But again, I'm not seeing a lot of nature that's right there, and that's to be expected.
But all that is important. The urban tree canopy is extremely important, but it's just not right for us.
And for conservation easements specifically.
Right.
Yeah, they're a lot of work with a lot of restrictions, and they're going to last forever. So, you want to be careful on where you put these things that you'll have to take care of and abide by forever.
Sure.
So.
Or any subsequent landowners will have to abide by that set of restrictions as well. So it's in perpetuity, which means it carries from landowner to landowner.
Yeah. Have you ever run into any problems with somebody purchasing a property that has the easement on it that they disagree with? Or, I mean, I obviously I would think that the law and the courts are on the side of the easement. That
Yeah, luckily they are. But we've only had one issue a long time ago where someone bought a piece of land that they didn't know had an easement on it, and then they tried to build a house. And then luckily it got resolved and the house was not built. And
you thought the conversations about getting the easement were delicate.
Yeah, but otherwise we keep a really good rapport with our landowners. I go out, I send them a newsletter every year. I try and remind them often, if you're going to sell your property, please come talk to me. Tell your realtor to come talk to me, just because that makes it so much easier for the next landowner when they understand what's going on and who to talk to and things like that. So if a new landowner comes on board, I'll send them a welcome packet and, try and go talk to them face to face.
Congratulations on the purchase of your land, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, another question. I mean, I know way back in the day, my grandmother's farm up in Pennsylvania was put into a land trust, and she had, I think, 300 and some odd acres, and then the farm behind her had 300 and some odd acres. One to the side had 500 or 600 acres, and everybody kind of did the same thing. Do you find that's happening here? And I know that we don't have the wide open spaces in central or north Anne Arundel County, but certainly down in South County there are some very wide open spaces. Do you find that there's interest in adjoining parcels?
Some of them.
Yeah, some, and you do find once a landowner puts their property under easement that, like the one we had recently, she said, I'm going to talk to my neighbors, and so they can become ambassadors for, spreading easements to other properties. As we noted earlier, it's a long process. So just because they've made that initial entree doesn't mean that we're going to get an easement next week.
Right.
Well, I know my grandma was very thrilled about that. A lot of the neighbors did, because there was one Mr. Bausman's farm behind that was out of her living room. You could look and see it off in the distance, and he didn't do it, and he ended up selling it to a developer. And as my grandmother would say, she would say, "Oh my God, they built these god-awful tract homes." And when I hear tract homes, I think of some inner city something or other. I mean, these were $500,000 homes, probably 20 years ago, on 3-acre lots and stuff like that. I mean, so they were very nice homes as far as homes go. But again, if you're looking at a piece of land, and I mean, her intent was, by getting neighbors, and I don't know whether she started it or somebody else did, was to get that and to preserve that view. I mean, she wanted to be able to look out across her yard and see the pond and the fields beyond that, and then the fields on the next one, and maybe off on the horizon there's a farmhouse.
Right. Not a dozen.
Now we got tract houses, but it's that I think I'd love to live in those tract houses, but at the time, and I think that's just it's a wonderful method to do something like that. Once we learn about the easements, what would be the next step? Give Sarah a call and have her come meet with you and talk with you, and
Yep. So the next step would be to call me, and we can talk about how an easement can fit their land specifically. And I can look it up on a map and, see what's going on and get their plans for the property and see how we can start crafting that easement for exactly what they would be happy with and what we would be happy with. So there's a lot of back and forth on, making sure that everything in the easement can work for that landowner, and also it's got enough wiggle room that, the next landowner will probably be okay with it, and, forever hope, this is giving me a lot of credit that I can write things like this, but I'm hoping that how we write easements today will still be okay with landowners and how land is managed, 100 years from now.
Right.
So that's the next step. So you start with a conversation on the phone, if it still sounds like a good idea, I'll come out to your property and we can walk around and look at it, and then the next step is I'll, give you a draft conservation easement if
Are
you
easements
wanna keep going.
Are easements all or nothing on property?
No.
So
if I had 1,000 acres, I could say I want to put 500 into a
Yep. Yeah, so
easement and keep the other
carve
500.
out area, even on smaller land properties, you can carve out 5 acres for a house in that 5 acre envelope, if you're not planning on building one right away.
If I was a farm owner, a large farm owner or something like that, and I wanted to provide for my kids down the future, I could turn around and say I want to keep 10 acres, provided that it's zoned properly and everything else, to perhaps build 5 homes on it or 3 homes on it.
Yeah.
And easement the rest of it.
That can be done. That can certainly be done. That's
They're
what I'm
very
doing.
versatile.
Yeah, right. Right now I'm writing an easement like that.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually.
And the other thing, going back to your previous question, is that depending on the timing and the status of the county's program, there may be the opportunity to get a per acre amount on the land. So if you have 100 acres that you're putting under easement, there's a minimum of 3,000 acres if the Forest Conservation Act monies are approved by the county that you would get for that land. And if the land's worth more, you can have an appraisal done and you might be able to get up to over $10,000 or more dollars per acre. So it can be a pretty hefty amount for you to get rid of, or you have the development rights extinguished, but still hold on to your land, and everything else can be pretty much the same.
Right, and so that grant program in the past has paid only for forested areas, or they'll pay even more, almost $6,000 per acre, if you let them plant trees, or you let us plant trees. So the landowner doesn't have to pay for anything regarding the tree planting, but they get paid more to let us do it.
To allow access to plant those and to reforest.
Right. So if they want to, say they have 20 acres of forest and 5 acres of field with a house in it, and they want to have 2 acres of that field planted with trees, we can pay for the tree planting and a couple years of maintenance, and they don't have to sink anything into the cost of the tree planting, and then they get an extra almost $12,000 on top.
Wow.
Which is nice. And that's that grant program really likes tree plantings too. So I'm looking for places to plant trees. As well as, protect forest in general.
Right. So the open land is on the target right now.
Yeah, and that that's kind of a delicate thing because I don't want to take farmland out of production, because I like having food around. But if
you want everything,
clean air, water, food. But if you just have a grassy field that you've been mowing for the last however many years, and you don't have a better use for it, and you'd like to see some trees instead,
let's plant it.
That's a great idea to plant some trees there.
And your tree planting. When you guys plant a tree, are we talking little saplings? Is that pretty much what we do? Or
Yep, generally, yeah. So they're usually called, I guess they're called whips. So they're, but we can even plant like 3-gallon trees. But there's nothing large, nothing over 5 feet.
We'll come back in 20 years and see how it looks. But yeah, no.
You're going to get a certain amount of mortality amongst those, so you have to kind of monitor them and take care of them for a few years, especially with the deer population in some of these areas.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
And changing weather. Who knows what that's going to do.
The two dates again are
Thursday, July 18th at 2 o'clock at the Edgewater Library, and Tuesday, August 13th at 6 p.m. at the Crofton Library. And it would be great if people would register online at our website at SRLT.org. So I know you're coming.
It's no cost, though.
Yeah, no, it's totally free. No obligation if to go there.
and again, this is for somebody that has some piece of land and to come see whether a easement makes sense for them or not.
Exactly, yes. And if you happen to be a neighbor that wants land protected around, there's a lot of community advocates that have come to these that, they're either advocates or community leaders that they want to know more about the conservation easement process for, so they can be kind of ambassadors to their neighbors. So even if you don't have land, but you live next to people with land,
right,
you should come too.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, you're more informed and you're better able to have that conversation over coffee with your neighbor or drinks or whatnot, just to keep the analogy going, but to plant that seed.
Yeah.
Plant that whip.
To see where it goes. I mean, I think it makes all the sense in the world to turn around and to try to get some neighbors together to do it. And again, if I would think if you've got 4 or 5 acre lots, I mean, then together it might make a lot of sense.
Yeah, if that's a really special area and you end up having all the landowners together, it depends. But yes, it could definitely be a really great thing for landowners to come together and protect an entire area together. How
does the decision process go when obviously, as I said, you're not going to be taking my house anytime soon, but when somebody approaches you, how does the evaluation process work here with Scenic Rivers to do that? I mean, is that something that you, Sarah, as the conservation director, would look and say this makes sense, and then does it go up to the board? Does it is it something that's just handled internally?
So I'll usually take a first look at it, and I'll talk to the landowner and see what they want to do, because if they have 20 acres of land and they still want to put 5 houses on it.
Right, I want $1 million
maybe not.
and everything.
But if their plans line up with our conservation ideals, and then I'll look on a map and see what conservation values it has. So I have a bunch of mapping data that says okay, there's wetlands here, there's streams here, there's endangered species habitat here, et cetera, and I'll put those all in a list, and I'll kind of make a first evaluation of okay, this is worth taking to the executive committee or not, and then eventually I'll take it to the executive committee, which will do a first pass, and then later we'll take it to the board for a full approval.
And then at that point, then the negotiations start on the...
Yeah, once we have the executive committee's approval, we'll start serious negotiations with the landowner.
Okay.
And then we'll bring it up to the board. It usually takes a year to get an easement done. So they know about it well before they have to do their final decision approval. And then,
It's been pretty well vetted at that point.
Yeah. So
that I think that's very rare for an easement at that point for the board to say, no, we don't want to do it. It's been vetted all along, so the board knows at the end that it's a good, solid easement.
Right, I could see. I mean,
before.
maybe if all of a sudden there was a surprise development that came adjacent to it or something like that devalued it, I can see that possibly.
Yeah, there are things that arise that are stumbling blocks along the way, but if you can get to that last board approval, you're usually...
Very few stumbling blocks beyond that point. Find out more about what the Scenic Rivers Land Trust does, SRLT.org. Mm-hmm. Attend one of these 2 events at the Edgewater or the Crofton Library in July and August. And RSVP, so Sarah knows how many cups of coffee to bring her. I'm not sure whether you guys are providing Danishes or something like that, but let them know that you're coming. And you can RSVP right online on your website?
Yes, you can.
If you get a chance, go out and look at all the great work they've done. Go out to Bacon Ridge. I will recommend that when the Walk for the Woods rolls around again next April.
Yep.
Okay.
But you can go to Bacon Ridge off the entrance off of Hawkins Road at any time during the year and hike the 7 miles or so of trails there, which are absolutely gorgeous.
They really are. You guys, and is that like your gem of the...
It
Of your-
is our biggest easement. And yes, I guess it would.
That's our. We think it's a gem.
Yeah, we think it's a gem.
I think so too. I mean, it's preserved, it's usable, it's beautiful.
And it's a lot cooler than the surrounding area at this time of year. You walk into that canopy of trees and the temperature drops 10 or 15 degrees.
How much?
I'm guessing, but based on how I feel when I walk in, it feels like a 10+ degree drop.
Wow.
Because you're out of the sun and into the shaded area where that hot air is not reaching the ground all the way, the sunlight.
For those that don't know, the Bacon Ridge, I mean, that is a haven for bikers.
It is.
And bikers and hikers. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the bikers, I don't know whether I don't envy them or I envy them, but when I see them climbing some of the hills that are there on the bikes, I go, how does that get done? But it's wonderful. I mean, you run into families there that are walking. I've been there on several Sundays, and I wouldn't say it's crowded, because I mean, it's not. I mean, you pass a couple people, but it's just really beautiful. There's something to discover every time you get there. I know the first time I think I went, I discovered the car graveyard. That's there. And then there was another one that had sort of like a little moss house kind of thing that was somebody built.
Yeah, somebody's been building like little tiny
Villages
or scenes, which is you know, just like out of like moss and logs.
Yeah. That's, you know, I've seen those. I've seen the latest thing is like stacking the rocks, which is I guess sort of a Zen thing to be able to do, and just to balance the rocks up. And it's really fascinating. You see something new every time that you go there. As you look around the county and as you see more and more acreages coming under your tutelage at 3,000 acres.
3,057 acres.
Which is phenomenal for Anne Arundel County. And where is most of that? Is that most of that in, we'll say, Annapolis area south?
It is split between the Crownsville area and down south.
Okay.
Yep.
Where are the hot spots? Is the hot spot still South County?
Yeah. All of South County is a hot spot. Just it's so rural, and then there's a big hot spot. In the Crownsville, Harold Harbor area. Right. Just because there's so much green there already, and we just have a lot of easements around there. We
do live in a very special area, I think, that, and you guys are doing a great job of ensuring that it is continuing to be a special area. It's, as county executive would say, the best place, which personally I'm not big on the slogan, but I mean, I do agree that this is, I've lived many places, and this is definitely at the top of the list for what it offers, and it's certainly no doubt in a large part to the work that your predecessors and you guys and your successors will do in keeping it that way. Go to the meetings at Crofton Library and Edgewater Library. Learn about land preservation. Learn about an easement on property for yourself, perhaps your neighbors. Sarah has all of the information and be more than happy to talk to you and let you know what needs to be done. And you can explore a little bit more at slrt.org.
SRLT.org.
I'm glad I got you guys here.
And even if you can't put up an easement on your own property, consider supporting us so that we can put easements on other properties, which helps everybody in the county and maintains enough green space that we all feel connected to the land here.
Right. And you guys are a nonprofit, so you can take donations.
We are very happy to take donations.
Yes, we are.
And you would be a really poor board member if you didn't say that. That's is there anything else that you guys have for today?
No, I look forward to talking to anyone who's interested in conservation. That's all.
Do you want to throw a phone number out?
Yes, 410-980-6837.
Fantastic. And that will be Sarah's office or Sarah's voicemail?
Yes.
Learn all about it. Hey, thanks guys very much for today.
Thanks for
so
having
much.
us.
This has been the Maryland Crabs podcast with Tim Hamilton and John Fernay. Sure to follow them at all the regular places, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and online at themarylandcrabs.com. Take a moment to rate us on iTunes. Now, get the hell out of my kitchen. Seriously, go!
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.